Yeah, so good morning, hi. We are talking today about art technology for developing audience engagement, but I actually want to be understood. So I will speak quite a lot what I mean by audience engagement, and I will use the excuse of art that is built on technology to explain you more what audience engagement is for me, and I hope also that it could become something more robust for you as well. I will present it through my own kind of grouping of directed, semi-structured, and open interaction or engagement. But first, well, let me introduce myself. I'm Agnieszka Wlazeł, and I'm audience engagement researcher, but I'm audience engagement researcher for the past 3 years only. And I have 30 years of experience of working in the art sector as a director of film festivals, for example, or multidisciplinary art festivals. So I'm you, basically, mostly, and I distill my new theoretical knowledge through my practice, art practice. So this is a picture from my festival. Before I discovered that audience development has some tactics and strategies, and this one is after I knew what is it. As you see, there is little difference between both pictures, which is a good news because it means that knowledge doesn't kill intuition, and you still can have a lot of audiences while developing some extra knowledge about audience development. And I'm engaged with Impact Foundation in Poland together with Agata, and I'm doing my PhD research in the UK at the University of Leeds. So I would like to start with some wording. There are many words that we use very often interchangeably as synonyms. And I would like us to stop for a while every time we use a word and reflect on its meaning. Because each of these words bring different values, different weight of meaning for the person that speaks and the person that hears them. And I actually think that we should know what we want to say, because if we are clear in what we are saying, we can be clear in our actions. And we are clear in our actions, we can actually design them better and direct them better, and actually we have a chance to evaluate them as well, because we will all mean the same things, speaking about specific issues. So, not the very favorite topic of mine, although I dealt with audience development for I think now more than 15 years in theory. And I actually spent my first year of PhD thinking and reading and writing about what is wrong with audience development. And after 30 years of working in the art sector, I actually am fed up with marketing and management kind of connotation coming with it. So I actually noticed that I did something wrong, because I was using audience development, but I was actually meaning audience engagement. And I very often hear that you also use those terms interchangeably. And I think that it might confuse us. There was the work that Valence Foundation did in 1990s that actually used some theories to help to increase cultural participation. And they used 3 words that are actually very often used in audience development definitions. And there are probably so many audience development definitions as many people here in the room. So they used 3 words, and they were to broaden, deepen, and diversify. And if we use all of them only with audience development, then the problems start. But then, what is audience engagement? If I want to have clear actions, I have to have clear meaning. But actually, audience engagement can as well mean different things to different people. And if I asked you, again, I would have probably hundreds of answers. So some of them are here, because we don't have time for discussion. So for some of you, it might be the active process of participating in the art. Or for others, it can be the outcome of the process. I'm actually kind of leaning towards the emotional, affective relationship between the audiences and the artwork or art organizations. This is the part that I like the most. But then if you ask someone from technology world and those dealing with audience experience, user experience, they will use all these fantastic words that actually are also relevant for us. The third point, if you could read them, all these verbs there and the words there, they actually do affect our act of engagement. Then more organizational approaches like interpretive assistance. So all the things that help give audiences some extra knowledge, like lectures or rehearsals or online forums, or help them to actually make the meaning, like get the meaning of your work, so through pre- and post-event art talks. But very often we also use audience engagement as just telling that someone came, so attended or not attended. And this is even more confusing. So again, coming back to audience development and audience engagement. And I must say, unfortunately, it's not my invention. I mean, the things that I will say in a minute. But I think they just got unnoticed. Maybe it was in wrong literature or not said loud enough. But for me, audience development is about reach. So about bringing new people to your art venues, bringing different people to your art venues. And audience engagement is about impact. So audience development has in mind mostly your needs, because you need more people in your venues. You need more tickets sold. You need better numbers in your reports for your funders. But audience engagement is more about them, about audiences, what they need, what they want, and what also they don't know that they want. So in audience development, audience is more passive, and in audience engagement, they have the say. But then, another word that we are using a lot is participation. And I also wanted to open your thinking about participation a bit. And there are different theories and a lot of theories about participation, but I will use just one, which is 50 years old. It's a ladder of civic participation. As you see, there are 8 ranks of the ladder, kind of grouped in 3 main issues. And, the words might be a little bit outdated because it's 50 years old, but I will explain a little bit more about them. Manipulation is more about education, so someone from the top says something to someone who doesn't know. Therapy is more like a cure, so again, top-down approach. Then degrees of tokenism, and here I have my note because I usually use very undiplomatic words and I prefer to be diplomatic. So it's more mechanical or symbolical acts of accessibility. So audiences have a right to hear, to listen, to be heard through consultation, or even to advise through placation. This is a very good step to begin, but if you also end in these places, then it's not really participation. It's comfortable for us because we have a feeling that we engage through audiences, we listen to them, but do we really listen? Do we really hear what they are saying? Do we really implement what they are saying to us? This is something that we should reflect about. And then the real degrees of power. So the moments where there's really dialogue and partnership between you and audiences. The moment when you start to delegate the power or give the power away. And I'm not encouraging you to give your power away. And of course, you can have a mix of all these things. But at least, look at the participation in the more broader context and reflect on your aims and reflect about the degree of the dialogue between you and them. Then there are a few issues that I would like also to point you to in engagement. I think that very important is the concept of agency, so how much power they have in the relationship with you. I think it's very interesting also the flow theory of optimal experience, because we all want them to have the optimal experience. Or theories of encoding and decoding. So about artists sending a message and audiences actively decoding what they were saying, and actually decoding in the way that you don't know what they will come up with after hearing you or watching the artwork. So it's unpredictable what they will get from your event. Another thing to inspire you, the arc of engagement. And please don't take the arc for granted, so it's not really this kind of curve. But I think that the very important thing are those spheres that you have there, because they can help you to direct the engagement. And if you know what you do for your audiences in every phase, you can also very easily evaluate it afterwards. And of course, each audience member will have different arc of engagement. And for example, for some of you, the engagement with my talk could be like from the top to the bottom, because I will lose you somewhere on the way. But for others, it can be quite flat at the beginning, then I say something and you will go up, and then you might go down, or you might hopefully go up again. So please think about the whole process that people are going through with you. And then the arc of engagement and those engagement styles are both from Brown and Ratskin, so I recommend the reading here as well, because there are different engagement modes and engagement styles. We engage differently when we are alone. And the social engagement is more unpredictable, because we can predict some things that audiences will do, but not all the things. So actually this engagement starts to be a little bit more free and unpredictable. Some people like to be actively engaged, and some people want to be left alone. And sometimes we learn from our co-audiences how to engage, and sometimes we can be guided through how to engage. And I think that it's also important to differentiate between community engagement and audience engagement. You think now, finally, art and technology, but not yet. There is one more thing that is important in engagement. It's interaction. And actually art and technology is really a good excuse to talk about engagement, and we can learn a lot, as I said already before, because there are different artworks that are digital and interactive that behave differently, and they need from audiences something different. Some adapt to audiences, and some others adapt audiences to the artwork, for example. And there are different dimensions of digital interactive art, and I think they are also very interesting for those who are not dealing with digital, but also with analog, let's say, because it might be inspiring to think about what kind of engagement you design for your audiences. So, for example, Edmonds have grouped artworks in 3 ways through the nature of art systems. So, for example, static is when artworks doesn't change. Dynamic passive is when artworks change, but not because of the audience. And dynamic interactive is when artwork changes because audiences did something. I will skip the second one to save a minute, but the third one is very important. So grouping artworks depending on the aims of the experience. And some of you who work in the museums probably heard about the attracting power and sustaining power. And the same is here. So there are elements that are catching the people's attention. There are other elements of the artwork or the experience that are retaining the attention, not only during the experience, but also shortly afterwards. And relating is building long-term interest. And artists very much wish for long-term influence, but very often then concentrate on attracting powers. And they are unfortunately not equal. So the attraction doesn't necessarily lead to long-term engagement. And I, through my reading and thinking, came with 3 groups of artworks from the audience perspective. So I'm talking about directed, semi-structured, and open interaction. And the directed interaction and engagement is when audiences doesn't really have power. So they come and sit and watch, but still they engage through their internal processes, so affect as interaction. The second one is semi-structured. So artworks are prepared, but audiences have influence how they experience this, for example, through different order. And open engagement is when we really don't know what's happening. That artworks are building on experiences of audiences, and each audience member have different experience, and we cannot really predict, including artists, what will happen. So finally, we are going to some examples. You might recognize some of those, and I must apologize for 2 things. One, that the examples are mostly UK-based, because my research is UK-based, and unfortunately, for example, I don't speak Lithuanian, so I couldn't involve other projects from this era. And also comparison is easier when you use the same cultural grouping, let's say. But I would be happy to hear about other projects that you know about, that I could investigate more in the future. So there are more and more mushrooming exhibitions that are using artificial intelligence, and they are kind of like large-scale video projections. This one is Atelier de Lumière in Paris, that presents or works that are developed by artificial intelligence, or they're using the traditional or established artworks to bring audiences' attention. And this exhibition, this is the picture from Poetic, but they also presented Klimt and Hundertwasser, and now they are presenting Van Gogh in the same way. And this exhibition had 1 million visitors in more or less 9 months, if I remember right. So it's a lot of appetite of audiences for this kind of experiences. On the other hand side, we are having very intimate artworks. By the way, it's like I'm not author of these projects. I'm just, trying to flag you to the directions that are interesting. And if you need more information, you have hints where to look for them on my slides. So this is Draw Me Close, something that I happily was engaging with as well as one of the audience members. 2 people experience. It's one-to-one experience with the artist, and it's VR experience. And an audience member is actually a protagonist in it. And this is really interesting thing, because they use virtual reality, but it's also very tactile, so you also feel on your skin what's going on, because the actor, the other person, interacts with you. I would like also to flag you the work of Digital Orchestra, Philharmonic Orchestra, and they are having already for 10 years a big digital program that is designed to develop audiences. And there is a fantastic report about E-Orchestra that was a 2-year program to develop audiences that brings together digital elements, traveling exhibition in the musical track, and live concerts, and the community engagement activities. And this report of E-Orchestra is kind of showing the whole process from the strategy to its evaluation. And because it was 2 years project, it can be interesting for those who have the good potential to do long-term projects like ECOC, for example. Then, very briefly, because I want to have you a little bit of time for talks, this is a, regular theatrical experience, but using digital avatars, interacting in real time with actors on stage. So pretty magical, especially in the context of Tempest. Then, collaborative music making. A bit old projects, it looks like 2016, I think, and but this is something that builds interest of audiences through collaboration in communal music making. Experience that was designed for non-musical audiences, but actually also music professionals enjoyed it a lot, so you can pair those things at once. This is museums. And this is, it looks like traditional now, almost, app that audiences start to experience in the museum, on the exhibition, by filling the questionnaire on the app. And through those answers, the app suggests a route to have the individualized, personalized experience in the museum. But there is another trick, because they are having sensors in the museums that interact with the apps. So if you behave differently than they predicted, the app adjusts the road or suggests you extra things that you might be interested in because something kept your attention. Then this is social, but still very private virtual experience. I will not tell much about it because I hope maybe some of you will be able to see it. But the extra interesting thing about it is that artists planned also post-experience engagement, linking the personal experience with the artwork that they developed. This is quite recent, immersive Dickens, so mixed reality experience, so digital and live experience designed together with young audiences for young audiences, with test phase. And what's interesting here as well is that it was based on just one object, and the whole long experience was developed through going deep rather than going broad. And to my last slides about projects, well, three, about a little bit more open engagement, but I will speed up. And this is TeamLab that some of you probably have seen live, and some of you have seen on different social media. And this is artificially intelligence generated, co-generated artworks that actually also changes differently according to the audience behavior. And what I actually like about it, this is an example for audiences learning from our audiences to other audiences how to engage, because some of them didn't notice that something changed because they lay down. But if they notice that something changed when someone else laid down, then they start to behave differently. And by the way, in which museum you can just lay down and lay for hours? And I've seen people there really doing different things, even kissing, like passionately, which is a little bit embarrassing. But they feel very comfortable in this environment, like almost kind of meditating space. So why not? One last slide to give you some hints how to deal with, how to help your audiences to engage. The scaffolding is also quite old concept from 1970s of Jeremy Brunner that was there developed into the museum sector by Nina Simon, which is helping your audiences by showing, telling, modeling behavior, how to engage, how to learn. And the thing is that it's designed in a way that it's in temporary structure. So it's not something that you permanently do it. It's something that you design to build their knowledge, their skills, their comfort of dealing with the artwork. And then when you are gone, they are still interested and they know how to engage. So I talked a lot about audience engagement because this is my most interesting topic for me. I used art and technology as an excuse to talk about audience engagement, but you might actually notice from my presentation that it's not art and technology that is building engagement, because audience engagement depends on humans. It depends on you, because you are designing the journey of audiences in your venues, in your festivals. But you design the journey, but you don't know where they go. So the destination is theirs. So they are co-creators of their own experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnieszka. Now, on to your questions, please. We have microphones for you, and we do have questions.
Anneli Sago, Estonia. Thank you very much for your talk. I was wondering that do you have also examples where technology is used to engage people who are not living in big art metropoles, and where the physical engagement with the art event is not obligatory?
Well, I think there are a lot in the internet, and I'm actually very much interested in the human perspective and social perspective. That's why I concentrated on those works that are both social and digital in the public venue, in the cultural institution. So, but a lot of museums, including the Philharmonic Orchestra, they are having on the website activities engaging with the art world and artworks and music and museum collections through internet. So I just think that most of the museums, especially in the UK, but also in Netherlands, they are having a lot of digital projects online, not just offline.
Yes, hello. My name is Christian Moser. I will work for ASH 2022 ECOC. You showed us two examples, one of Atelier des Images in Paris and the other one of the Tokyo Digital Museum. And I was wondering, when you talked about the top-to-bottom approach, I have the feeling that the participatory element of these is going back to a top-to-bottom because of its content. They use very, I apologize, but kitsch to attract, as you said, millions of audiences. And I have the feeling that with this very recent and kind of participatory technique, they go back to a non-challenging content. And my question is, do you agree?
First of all, I don't differentiate art into high and lowbrow. So I don't qualify, high art as better than low art, and digital art as lower than, Rembrandt. So I don't mind. If people love it, then why should we say it's wrong because they love it? We have a lot of experiences, including my festival. The picture that I showed you was for the festival that was loved by the audience, but some were saying, artists and curators, no, it's supermarket. There are too many people. You cannot treat it, as a serious project. So you cannot depreciate art because it's popular, first of all. The second thing is, I must say, and this is also backed up by research, that people are not really ready for open experience. They want to have some guidelines. So that's why I showed you scaffolding. And it goes for the digital art, but also for contemporary art. Because, I am an art lover. I probably, increase the statistics of museums in London and in Venice because I participate so much in every possible art experience. But I really don't get the contemporary art until I get the hint how to appreciate it, understand, or think it's beautiful, because otherwise I think, so what? So I personally experienced both Atelier de Lumière and TeamLab exhibition in Paris as well, not in Tokyo, which probably was smaller than the other, the original one. But I must say that I loved it, and I love art, and I loved that other people loved it, even if maybe they don't love art as such. And they engaged. Some of them were passive, laying down and just observing what's going on. Some of them were playing with it, but what's wrong with playing? Because this will be something that they will remember. This might be the first experience of art for them, and maybe this is like, first of the many, and not the first and the last one at the same time. And I would like to add one more thing, because we used to think in a linear way, but we are, as humans, are not thinking in linear way. So today's experience might resonate in me in 3 years' time rather than tomorrow. So, we are the complex creatures that, build our experiences, and we never know which element triggers which responses and which actions. So, yeah, I don't think it's wrong to enjoy art in the more popular way.
Okay, do we have more questions? I have a question for you.
I have a question to the audience as well.
Okay.
But you start.
Okay, thank you. So is there, Agnieszka, is there a limit to technology usage? in let's say, museums, in your opinion? As an example, I could mention House of European History in Brussels. I was given an iPad, I was given earphones, something else, and I had to navigate, had to master the equipment, and after some time I got tired. I just wanted to close everything down and enjoy the museum the old way, the old school, but it wasn't possible.
Well, why it wasn't possible? You could, you know...
Because there are no signs behind the artifacts.
Yeah.
Yes, so
but even if you have
because they are all virtual, there.
I must say, and this is again backed up by research, that in terms of technology and interaction, this is really a key issue, to have it working and have it accessible in the way that you are actually able to engage with it. Because if you are not, and you are a perfect example of this, you just don't enjoy it. So even if the artwork is beautiful, you lose the audience member. And because I did also audience development in the museum, in the performing arts, cultural institution, huge ones, so I also have the experience of audience development. And one of my biggest mistakes in audience development was to actually follow my programming director order, which was not a request, to, you know, bring new audiences to certain concert. So of course I could do it. I brought new people, but unfortunately I didn't know that much the piece. So I brought new people to classical music for 3 hours concert. That even the musicians were bored. And you know, I might do something contrary to audience development. So it's very much important for you to reflect of what you propose to your first-timers and actually how you prepare yourself for their second visit. So they actually are motivated to come back and you help them with this motivation. So technology must always work. Otherwise, it has no sense. And if you know, there's a museum in Warsaw that have fantastic technology, but...
The batteries are not charged, right?
No, actually it's different, because they built it a few years' time, so it's all about no, because I wasn't there. It was to type, and when the young people come, they want to do this, so they don't know how to work. It's like they don't know how the analog phone works because they are not used to do it. So, you know, I also experienced another museum that was probably very proud of their, you know, computers that kind of helped me to make sense of their exposition. But after a minute of trying to understand what they want me to do, I just gave up. So, you know, technology unfortunately advances quite fast, and our audiences also advances with that very fast, and we are not. So, yeah, you be very careful.
Okay, thank you. Now your question to the audience, please.
Yeah, I have one question and one personal reflection. So what do you think about the differentiation between audience engagement and audience development? Can it help you to design the engagement and the experience of audiences with you? Of course, the both concepts are interlinked, and you have better audience development if you use also audience engagement, and the same people can do both. But if you have two objectives very clear, one is reach and one is impact, then you can build both, actually. So what do you think? Do you want to stick with just, you know, using audience development and audience engagement for the same things, or would it help you? Or you have to reflect. No, there is someone who is brave enough to say. This is my kind of testing phase with the users.
Hello, thank you. I think it's a very good idea because I represent a museum and we've been speaking about different audiences, and there are certain audiences which might be occasional day trippers actually, and it is enough in terms of developing just to reach them occasionally, time after time, and there are certain other types of audiences you really want to engage, which means to make an impact, probably. I think that for marketing teams it's a really good insight actually to realize that there are two different approaches. In some activities it is enough just to reach the audience, make sure that you really contact and send some information and spread some information for the goal of reach, and in other cases you really want a dialogue with the audience to attract and impact the audience. Thank you.
And I also think that then having a clearly and imaginative mission for the audiences help, for the organization also helps, because then you know in which direction the impact you want.
Hello, I'm from Estonia and I'm also an audience researcher working at the university, and I find this idea really interesting and I think also really useful. But for me, I think the audience engagement is more about loyalty, actually engaging with the audiences you already have. But also in my head, I think that if you're doing audience development, you have to think of the engagement at the same time. It was the same example that you said yourself, that if you bring the people, for example, to the theater for the first time, you also have to think how to engage them so they would come back the next time. So I think they're always like interlinked in this way. Thank you.
Yeah, I also agree that they are interlinked, but if we use them as synonyms, then we miss the opportunity. And yeah, I wanted to say something else, but I've forgotten. But in case someone has more questions, I'm around, and I want to use my last minute. Although they don't wait for me, I still might have more than one, because I didn't say, and some of you recognize me and know it, and some of you don't, so you don't know it, that I'm actually also sometimes appearing in the dreams or maybe nightmares of some of your colleagues, because I am the member of the selection panel and monitoring panel for European Capitals of Culture. So you now have an advantage of knowing my interest, not only from Googling me, but also from my speech. But I'm not sure if Agata is here. Yes, she is. Because I have a personal reflection at the end, which is maybe not that personal after all, because you might be the audience for this message, although you might not know yet, and none of us know that you are an audience for this message. Because I think it was 14th of September 2009, which was one of the worst days in my life, and I think that also Agata's, because we were in Warsaw at the announcement of the press selection for the European Capital of Culture in Poland for 2016. And Łódź, that Agata mostly worked for, but I joined her and very intensively helped her in the last 3 months. Łódź was considered the front runner by everybody in Poland, and the cultural sector thought we will win. But we were not even pre-selected. Why? It's another issue. But that night I had a dream that I told Agata about. That's the other day. And the dream was about us, both of us, Agata and myself, being in the boat. And you must say that Łódź means a boat. And we were traveling through the canals, and we ended up, happily, in the big conference. So, Agata, I think this is our journey here. We started with the boat, then we ended up in the planes, and yeah, thank you for that.
Agnieszka Wlazel, everyone.